Welcome back to the Coach Steve Show, where we're going to add another simple defense to our playlist here that we're going to continue on. Today, we're going to talk about our simple defense and our simple 3-4, and we're going to talk about stunts. We're going to talk about the stunts up front and how the easy way for me when I used to do it, how you could signal it in, or what would you call, and it starts with labeling the players, coming up with nice words for them to understand and be simple for them so they don't have to think as much. So we're going to talk about today. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow and rate on Apple and iTunes. Follow Coach underscore 70 Steve 72 on Twitter and the Coach Steve Show on Twitter as well. So our simple defense, we're going to continue on with our simple 3-4 and simple defense all around. Talk about stunts up front with our linemen. Now, you don't want to make things confusing with the linemen. You don't want them to have to think too much. And you're going to have to make sure you label things, and I'll get to that when we get there. But this is going to be about stunts up front. Very simple way to do it, and stunts to try to confuse the offensive linemen, take away their angles. Just to try to pressure the offense into the gaps. And you could two gap them. You in this 3-4 defense, you can just get hands on and aim for shoulders. You can make stunts with the linebackers and the outside linebackers and everything else, but we're going to focus on the linemen up front and the simple stunts that we could have in our 3-4. So for the offensive formation that we have our spread, which is our 2x2, and we're going to look at it from a defensive side. So bear with me being an offensive guy. We're going to look at this from a defensive perspective. So we have our Z, Y on the left, H, X on the right, quarterback, tailback in the backfield. So it's a spread, doubles, trying to keep us balanced. So in our 3-4, we'd have the corners line up either right head up, the receivers are inside, depending on however you want to play the corners. Your weak safety and your strong safety, that depends on your strength call. So if their H or their Y was their strength, you flip-flop them however you want. So if the Y was your strength, the strong safety would go and the weak side safety would go over there. You could have them play hashes outside the hashes a little bit. I always call laser would travel with the weak safety. That's probably more of your star type of player if you're thinking of a 4-2-5, or your best coverage player could go here. Then your razor, as I would say in my terminology terms, and however you want to line up. Are they splitting the difference? Are they line up on the line? Are they even with the backers? Anything else? You probably split the difference and split the difference in the formation and the tackles, and split the difference with your linebackers. The Sam would always follow the weak side, and the laser and the Mike would follow the razor and the strong safety. So up front, you would probably have your stud travel with the same, and your whip, you would call the W, the whip, or weak side. But the kids, they hated when, like, well, if he's called the stud and you call me the weak side, so we would just call them, okay, you're the whip, which means you're the fast guy. So they were like, okay, I'm fast, I would go here. So to stunt up front, for me, we would come up with words, and whatever word started with your position would be who would go first. So, for example, if you wanted the stud and the nose up front to stunt, and let's say you wanted the nose guard to go first, we would have a term called NOS. Like Fast and Furious, they would call NOS. And so it starts with an N and ends with an S. So the nose guard would go first. Now, it depends on what type of player you have. Do you want them to two gap? Is he fast enough? Do you want to aim for the shoulder? Anything like that. So these are more of our crossing stunts that we would have up front. So if you called NOS, we would tell the nose, you're aiming for outside shoulder of the guard, trying to get to that B gap. That's what we were telling them to aim for. So he's taking the sharp angle, turning the shoulder, and if he collides with the right guard, just try to keep fine to push into that gap. The stud would take a step back, and he's aiming for the A gap to the center shoulder. So you could two gap and say you're trying to grab on. You could aim for just the one shoulder, anything like that. But the nose is going first and the stud's going after. That's why we would call NOS. So if we called NOS, that stunt was happening up front. And then you would have some type of blitzing backer probably, or anything like that. And so we would have that happen as well. If your guys just want a one gap, if that's all you have, maybe you don't necessarily have to stunt up front. Another one you could do is just slant. And you could have a slant strong, slant weak. especially for the nose guard and the backside. So if it was like a slant strong towards the strong side, it's going to the left. The nose would aim for the right guard into that A gap. The whip would go inside, and then your laser would be responsible for anything outside. It's another type of stunt if you want them to stunt weak. Then it would go to the other side. The whip be on the outside. The nose take the A gap. The stud would take the B gap. Your razor would have the outside with the strong safety still able to come down for help. Your mic is able to flow either way, but he's looking towards that A gap, but help out any type of double team blocks and because we all know the gaps move. Another one that we could have um, with this up front, now you could have your nose and your whip go. So it just depends on what type of terminology you want. We could call win. So win would have the whip go first, then the nose would take a step back and aim for that left tackle. So win, the whip would go first. He's aiming for that center into the A gap. The nose is now going to the outside, and he is aiming for the left tackle for that B gap to the C gap. And we have to make sure that when we have these stunts, your razor laser, if you're not sending them on a blitz, they have to understand that they are protecting the C gap as well. There's still that run fit and the weak side safety and strong side safety. They're still responsible for that as well in this type of stunt that we're having up front. But this one, again, win or any word that you want that starts with a W in, anything like that. So win would be one for us. You could throw up 3 for W or anything like that, or win, like, hey, touchdown, win, whatever you want to signal it in as. Nos turning the hand like this. But for this, win would have that. Go ahead, go first, and you got to make sure, depending on what type of player you have, do you want a two gap and try to grab on 2 guys, or are you just telling them to aim for the shoulder and grab on with one hand and get up the gap? However you want to teach it, but another simple way to get to a stun up front. If you want the nose guard to go first with your stud, another word could be you could come up with any word once again for either side. Does not matter for these type of things. So if you want the stud to go first and the nose to come around, excuse me, I said that backwards. We could go stain, like you could take a cup and pour it on your shirt, like, oh, it's staining or anything like that. So the stud would go first. He would aim for that center. The nose would step around and aim there. That's another way. So stain, nos, working with those guys. And then on the other side, if you want the nose to go first, it could be new, like opening a present, like, oh, it's new, or you're shocked, like, and could signal that way, like, oh, it's new, or anything that you want to call it. You don't even have to label them as S and W. We've labeled them as a T before, and you could use it like tan could be one, net, those type of things. But it just depends on how you want to label guys. And you don't need all these different type of stunts, maybe, or anything else. But if you want new, nose would go first around, the whip would come around. Any way that your kids can pick up on it and understand the words and terminology. But those are different stunts that you can have up front. That is very simple in our simple defense and our simple 3-4 defense. That's our simple 3-4 defense and simple defense stunts up front. You don't have to label them that way. Those are just a little bit of examples. Label them however you want. Easy for your coach, for you, your assistant coaches to come up with words, but an easy way, however you set it up, always have it start with a letter and end with a letter that your kids can understand. So tan could be one if you want to label as a tackle, net, nos, anything like that. As long as your kids know them, you know them, your lower level coaches can know them, maybe even your junior level coaches. Just a simple way in your 3-4 defense, get some studs up front, put the pressure on the O-line, move gaps, all those type of things. That wraps up this episode. Like and subscribe YouTube channel. Follow and rate it on Apple and iTunes. Coach_Steve72 on Twitter. Leave a comment section down below. Check out the playlist, the simple defense. Check out all those other videos. Thank you guys again for watching and or listening, and we will see you guys next time.
Mm-hmm.